Hello, everybody, and welcome to your post-daily news show for Tuesday, March the 15th. I am John Pollock, along with Mr. Wai Ting. Hello, Wai.
Hi, John. How are you?
I am doing well. We have much to discuss today. Of course, the biggest story in professional wrestling is the passing of Scott Hall, who tragically died on Monday at the age of 63. This came after Hall suffered 3 heart attacks over the weekend and was removed from life support. So obviously a lot of tributes coming in Wai after the news was made public during Raw on Monday night, and just seems to be like the only topic that is dominating professional wrestling in the day that has followed.
Yeah, and I think it really shows you the amount of star power that the man had and the amount of impact he had on so many in professional wrestling who are fans of this thing, especially, you know, over the peak, I would say, of the Monday Night Wars era. So maybe we'll, get some thoughts of our own today.
That is right. But we wanted to bring on a good friend of the site / the show. He is former WWE referee Jimmy Korderas, who is joining us. Unfortunately, not under the greatest of circumstances with the passing of Scott Hall. But Jimmy, we wanted just to have you on. And first of all, just to talk a little bit about when you first became aware of Scott Hall, whether it's going back to the AWA or his earlier WCW runs. When did Scott Hall first kind of come onto your radar?
For me, it was, like you said, in the AWA days, because, fortunately up here in Toronto, back in those days, we used to get a lot of wrestling on television, a lot of different promotions. And one of them was, we used to get AWA wrestling. And when he tag teamed with another longtime friend of mine who unfortunately passed away, Kurt Hennig, that's when I really started to notice Scott Hall. And, before I understood what was going on, I kind of knew there was something there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, with Scott Hall, was it something that you could identify, sort of like that charisma factor? Was it something he grew into more with the Razor Ramon character? What kind of was like the progression you saw in Scott Hall as the 90s progressed?
You knew there was something there, like I said, but at the same time, it looked like he was trying to find himself. And I've read stories of his meeting with Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson, where he kind of brought up the Razor Ramon character as kind of a joke takeoff on the Scarface thing. And apparently Vince and Pat liked the idea, and that's where it originated from. And the beautiful thing about Scott is he made it his own, if you know what I mean. Yes, people could say, well, it was kind of like a little bit of a ripoff of Scarface, but at the same time, he just made it work, and you believed he was Razor Ramon.
What was your first reactions to seeing some of those vignettes?
Oh my goodness, I was watching it going, my brain working. Oh, is this going to work? Are people going to buy this? And they absolutely did, and that's the testament to him, Razor Ramon, the person, making that character work, because obviously in today's day and age where fans are a little more up to speed on what's going on, people say, it's very cartoonish. It's very sports entertainment-ish. But at that time, people were more willing to suspend disbelief and enjoy the program for what it was and watch it like it was a television show. And again, they gravitated to that character mainly because Scott Hall made it work.
Well, and it's something that I think whenever you have, someone of this level that passes away, and you're going back and you're watching various clips, and just things might hit you a little differently, or just things you kind of narrow in on. And this to me was a performer, Jimmy, that really did understand that, like, the value of television and all these little mannerisms that you equate with him, like putting out the arms as like the sign for the Razor's Edge, the toothpick, the chains, the surfer walk, like all these little things that you so instantly associate with Scott Hall that just became easy reactions that fans would have. And he just seemed to really milk that time on television and make sure that those little things got in and would resonate with the audience over time.
Absolutely. And he was a master at it. And he doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, for being that master strategist and having that mind and understanding timing, taking your time, setting a pace. How many guys can go out there and say they got a toothpick over to the extent that Scott Hall did? That's incredible to have an object like that. Obviously, people, come out with chains and other kind of weapons, but a toothpick? Man, that speaks volumes to his ability to just capture and enthrall an audience and get them invested in him, not just a move or I hate to use this reference, a twisting, burning 450 hammer Phoenix splash, which is like cool and exciting to see. He didn't need to do that stuff. And when he did do big moves, it meant something. It was a reason for it. He understood the psychology incredibly.
There have been so many, I think, stories that have been out, of course, about, the clique and whatnot. But I'm kind of curious, maybe from somebody who has a firsthand account of dealing with the man backstage, at least in some of those early years, what was he like to work with?
For me, it was, I never had the issues. I know there are probably some people out there who probably had some run-ins with the clique, so to speak, and that sort of thing. But I never experienced that sort of thing. Luckily, being on the ring crew and as a referee, I guess it was different. But he always treated me with respect. He was always friendly. He had a little nickname for me. He used to call me Jimmy Jam. I don't know if he named me after Jimmy Garvin or someone else, but he was always so cool and fun to be around, and always kidding around. And also, like when he saw something, he would come up to me and say, "Hey, Jimmy, in this situation, when this happens, maybe think about doing this or reacting like this." And I'd be like, "Oh, cool. Thank you."
It's so interesting that and you would be the perfect person to ask because you knew both of them. But we know of all the issues that Scott had that probably prevented him from truly being able to reach a certain level behind the scenes that I think could have taken him into the wrestling industry far beyond just his in-ring days. But WWE is structured much differently than when, Vince and Pat and Bruce were booking everything. But to me, Scott Hall would have been one of those people on a short list that could have fulfilled a role of a Pat Patterson, someone that, very creatively minded, that could maybe add that special something to a finish. He seemed to be that person that just little things that could make a big difference in the overall picture.
No, you're absolutely right, John. He just had that mind for the business. He understood the wrestling business and what it entailed to get people invested in characters, invested in the personas, invested in the personalities. And I feel sometimes he doesn't get enough credit for it. I mean, trying to draw kind of like an analogy with the Razor Ramon character, before it became cool to have someone like he was like a predecessor to Stone Cold Steve Austin in some respects, because here was a guy who became a good guy, but still acted like a bad guy, kind of like Steve Austin did. So it was almost like he was the precedent for that kind of heel turn to a babyface, if that makes any kind of sense.
Right.
At least the way I see it, as I remember it.
Certainly the moment that I think so many people attach to his career is when he did turn babyface, and much of that beginning with the loss to the 1-2-3 Kid. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that time and maybe some of the thought behind it and some of the reaction that you had to, seeing the whole thing unfold?
It's funny because me watching that match where Kid with the surprise victory over the established Scott Hall, it kind of caught me off guard going, "Oh, what's going on here? I wonder where this is going to lead to," because, obviously I wasn't privileged to sit in on the production meetings and the creative meetings or anything like that. So I was kind of curious to see where this was all going to lead. And I thought, this is brilliant. Here's a guy who understands the business to make another star. When you're trying to make a future superstar, he understood how to do that. And he fulfilled his role perfectly, and also enhancing himself, if that makes if you get my drift. You know what I mean? It did elevate Kid to another level, but it also
it started I think it really did fast forward Scott Hall several months later into now he's a very viable babyface in that that upper echelon on top of it. And we were talking about this last night. Like that was in the very infancy of Raw, and that being like one of those moments that kind of put the show on the map. And for us here in Canada, like we're not getting Raw at the time, and you're seeing like recaps of this, that this is now the A show, and we were kind of frozen out during those early years.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, the access to the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is today, so it wasn't that we could.
We had Starphone, Jimmy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing, and like you said, he was one of the originators of not only that era of getting Raw started and on the map and getting his character over, but also again getting people to think differently about how baby faces react, because babyface, gosh golly gee, the old Bob Backlund type was starting to fade away, and people were kind of moving away from that. And like I said earlier, he was like the bad guy, but he was a good bad guy.
When you fast forward to 2002 and Hogan, Hall, and Nash coming back to the company, like you're right in the thick of things at that point, and it was a very polarizing decision. Like you have seen what happened in WCW, bringing these three in. Like you can certainly see like the value, but at the same time, I'm sure there was a lot of concern of what are we bringing into this locker room. What was like a sense of the mood at the time?
Well, you could sense in some of the superstars and some of the talent that they were kind of concerned of where this was going to go, because obviously you're bringing back guys who left the company several years earlier for, I guess, for lack of a better term, monetary reasons. And look, they're businessmen. At the end of the day, you're in a business, and yes, you want to be happy, but one of the things you also want to do is make good business decisions for yourself. And they did that, and when they came back, they thought that they were going to get the guys who are going to run the creative, and they're going to have their say in whatever they want to do. And it wasn't like that. They were back, and they wanted to do business because they knew doing business the right way is going to make everybody money, and they understood that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic as you look back, and as you mentioned, like with the Click, like I am sure there were people that were very much turned off by it. But when we talk about independent contractors and the lack of a union or a representation, like that, here was a group that understood their power and were trying to utilize that power, and they had like their interests in mind, and that's something that I think we look at a whole part and would like to see more wrestlers kind of have more of like a slice of the pie. And these were a few individuals that were trying to exercise what leverage they did have at the time. It's a different way to look at it. And there were, positive and negative ways to look at that.
No, absolutely. And like you said, maybe they took it to the extreme at certain times in some people's eyes, but at the same time, they set the standard for how to do, negotiate. Let's for lack of a better term, like I said, this is a business at the end of the day. And not only are you doing something that you love to do, because to do what these guys do on a nightly basis, you got to love what you're doing, right? But at the same time, you're taking care of yourself and your family as well. So you have to look after the business side of things as well. And a lot of times guys were hesitant. I don't want to say afraid, but just, didn't want to go in there and say, hey, look, I think I deserve this, blah, blah, blah. These guys kind of set the standard and change the table on how you go in there and say, hey, look, I want to renegotiate our deal. The contract's coming up. Here's what I'm thinking. What are you guys thinking?
He's such a complex figure that you can go into with Scott Hall, and I'm sure like a lot of reflections are going to come out publicly over the next number of days. As you look at the legacy of Scott Hall, like, do you look at someone? Is this a tragic figure? Is this like, it just seems like there is so much good and bad you can say. This man went through an awful lot of struggles in his life, but how do you reflect on Scott Hall in these, this day after his passing?
Well, I try to look back on all the positives and my positive interactions with him. Like you said, here's a guy who ran the full gambit, the full circle. He went through pretty much every emotion, every struggle that someone can have, but also he went through some awesome times as well. He was a top superstar. He's in my opinion, one of the greatest minds and one of the greatest characters ever in this industry, and it showed. And I hope more people appreciate and understand the work that he put in, and try not to think so much about all the outside stuff that kind of maybe hurt him in the long run. But hopefully, I hate to put it this way, hopefully he's at peace right now. And, I wish things were different, and like a lot of credit goes out to DDP for all,
certainly,
for all the, help he gave to Scott over the years. And, like I said, I hope he's at peace, and I hope his family is, I'm sending them my deepest condolences, and all his close friends. We were friends. I don't want to pretend that I was like one of the clique or anything like that, but I do feel this one is a tough one.
Before we say goodbye to you, Jimmy, I did want to give you the chance. In a couple of weeks' time, you're going to be hosting a seminar along with Harry D. For those here in the Greater Toronto area, it's going to be happening at the Battle Arts Academy Saturday, April the 9th. Can you just share a little bit about what's going to be going on for aspiring officials out there?
No, it's basically what it is we're going to be giving our take on what it takes to be an official, especially in today's day and age, because like in wrestling, this business evolves, and so does the role of the referee. And we're not only going to talk about the role of the referee, we're going to talk about how talent could best utilize their referees, and what the actual role of a referee is in a match, which is not to get themselves over, but to help the talent get over, which is one of the big things that I have nowadays. But we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna, and it's gonna be wide open for questions. If people want, they can ask whatever they want. We're gonna be wide open and take any questions that anybody might have, and do our best to provide as much knowledge as possible. People like learning as well as I do, because I continue to try and learn to this day.
So if you are interested in this, if you want to become a referee, you can check this out at Jimmy Korderas on Twitter. It's going to be happening on Saturday, April 9th in Mississauga at the Battle Arts Academy on Tompkin Road. Jimmy, thanks so much for jumping on with us today to chat a bit about Scott Hall. It's great to catch up with you. Unfortunate circumstances nonetheless, but thanks so much.
No, my pleasure, guys. Thank you. You both take care. Stay safe, stay well, and keep doing what you're doing, man. It's awesome. All
right. We'll catch up soon. Thanks, Jimmy.
You got it, guys.
Thanks so much, Jimmy.
So thank you very much to Jimmy for jumping on with us to chat about Scott Hall. It is the biggest story right now, and just the memories are being so many people reflecting on Scott Hall, and just finding so many interesting parts of his in-ring career, and as well testimonials from people that he had interactions with in private. This was somebody that grew up as a star in many people's eyes, and it's one of those figures away from such a huge part of professional wrestling that it has a real significant mark when someone of that stature passes away.
Yeah. And, I suppose part of the silver lining of a terrible tragedy like this is that, it finally allows us to really focus on, I think, the incredible good that the man has created for his art form and for his business. These are accomplishments that, largely have, been sort of clouded by so much of the negative in the man's life over the latter part of his years. But now we can kind of, look back and just say, forget all that stuff. Let's talk about the ladder match. Let's talk about the 1-2-3 Kid. Let's talk about him appearing on Nitro. So, plenty of highlights to discuss and uncover in the days to come.
Yeah, there's all of that at the same time, and this is not to just sugarcoat anything. Life is not a straight line. It's life is it's hardly just made up of good moments or bad moments. It is 63 years, and some are extremely complex to encapsulate, and sometimes all of that comes with it, and it's not just some neat and tidy conclusion that you get to summarize someone's life. And that to me would be my definition of Scott Hall. So I think lots to discuss in the days to come, but we're going to move on to a couple of other news stories. basically, just wanted to do a little catch up now that we are just under 3 weeks away from WrestleMania and where things stand coming out of Raw on Monday night. So, looking at the two nights we have on the Saturday night, Charlotte and Ronda for the SmackDown Women's title, Becky and Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title, the Mysterios against The Miz and Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre against Happy Corbin, the Usos against Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs, and the Kevin Owens show with Steve Austin. Over on night 2, Lesnar and Reigns, the women's tag title triple threat match, Johnny Knoxville against Sami Zayn, Pat McAfee against Austin Theory, and Edge against AJ Styles. Probably a handful more matches to round out each of the night's cards, but what kind of shape is WrestleMania in, Way? I think that overall, like, Lesnar and Reigns, I think has been promoted very effectively. It feels like a huge match, and it's the benefit of having kind of that one singular championship. Even though on Raw, we're kind of seeing like this is the other side of the coin, that if we were of one consolidated championship, champion's not going to be on both shows, and you get a show that has to be built without a champion. And how do you think that they are achieving that goal this year?
Well, at least for Lesnar and Reigns, I mean, I think that match would have been big regardless of whether or not it was for one title or for both of the titles. I don't know. I'm still largely skeptical about the idea to do a unification. Personally, I don't think it means anything. I don't think the audience buys that this is for, this is any stipulation that'll last, and that they won't just have a tournament or have some sort of a, I don't know, belt handing ceremony the next day.
Winner must hold on to this belt for 6 months. That should be the stipulation. You can't get rid of this belt.
Oh boy, that's going to be a hassle at TSA. But yeah, I think the main event is in good shape. I've discussed this yesterday. There are matches that they have clearly planned for weeks out in advance that they are taking very seriously. And then there are matches that they're just filling the rest of this card with poorly put together stories at the last minute. Just to fill the card, honestly. And, looking up and down this thing back here, we have Reigns and Lesnar is a match that they've been planning on for a long, long time, despite a number of, I think, weird occurrences or COVID-related issues. I mean, they decided to stay the course, and I think it's going to pay off. It's been a decently pretty well-told story so far. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair is another one that they've had planned since August, and I think that's in pretty good shape. Flair Rousey is something that it feels decently hot, I would say, for a pseudo celebrity angle in a semi-main event. And then, the rest is just like, there's kind of stories that are quickly put together, or things that you just can't possibly care about, like Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. That actually has a lot of story or a lot of time put into it as well. But for this end result, I just can't see anybody getting excited for that. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs versus the Usos, that's just a filler match, and then even with the women's tag team championships, that's nothing. And then the rest of it is like celebrity here. You have Johnny Knoxville, you have Logan Paul, and you have Pat McAfee a part of the show. This Steve Austin thing, which, I'm still excited by, but maybe not as excited as I think most would have said, if this was a proper match, because they could go as little as like, few punches and a stunner, and then, hey, we delivered as advertised. We never said it would be a match. I mean, just a little bit more. I don't think we're going to get that, but just a bit more of a guarantee that, hey, like something we're going to see is substantial and will have somewhat lasting consequences more than just a talk show. I think that would have been nice. But of course, AJ's versus Edge probably is the match, in ring at least, that I have the highest hopes for.
Can you see anything other than Charlotte and Ronda closing night one? Is there anything else that could close that show, or is that a given to close night one?
I think it's possible that Belair versus Lynch closes. I mean, to me, that is the better story that is being told. And I think if you're talking about that arena crowd, people are going to be more into that match than Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. The appeal of a Ronda Rousey is to draw the mainstream crowd into the show. Well, once you're at the show, I mean, they can even go first, and I don't think the audience, ultimately cares. They're going to stick around. So I would actually end with Belair versus Lynch, especially if I think Belair is going to win.
And WrestleMania week as a whole, it's going to be interesting to see what shows really grab the most attention. I would say Supercard of Honor, they've got to make some announcements for that show. They've announced, I think it's 3 matches, and it just seems like it's a show that I don't think it's front of mind for people, other than what is the Tony Khan involvement going to be on this show. And I think people are kind of reserved until there's a card set out and what is going to be on this show. But we're getting close. I think these announcements need to come like this week.
I would assume that much of it they're coming up with as we speak, John, if that. It's still a very fresh deal right now that we don't really have any sort of information on, and I'm sure internally there's a whole lot to work out. But by the time that show comes, I'm sure there will be plenty of hype. I think the AEW machine is very strong, and they're able to send that messaging out. I mean, we've seen as late as 2 hours before the actual show. Not that they're going to do that with this.
Poor Excalibur.
You think
his read that week is going to,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then happening at the exact same time as Rampage, we've got ROH Super Card of Honor. You can have picture in picture. Stay tuned because we got
goodness.
Bandito taking on Johnny Gresham. Meanwhile, on the other channel, it's going to be Bryan Danielson.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm going to be calling both shows simultaneously.
Oh man, yeah, it's going to be a long weekend for that guy. He thought he probably would have had the week off, or at least the weekend off, and that's not the case. No, I don't know if it'll be Excalibur though.
No, it will not likely. I think you want to have like a different kind of presentation completely for Ring of Honor.
See, I would, now that you put it in our head, I would love Excalibur to read this entire list of WrestleMania events that you have put together.
I'll be doing this the week of. I'll be going through all the cards.
With your Excalibur
But if
impression.
Excalibur wants to join us to go through the WrestleMania week schedule, hey, open invite.
Postwrestling.com/mania, everybody, if you're attending or if you simply want a compiled list of everything that is happening WrestleMania weekend. John Pollock is always keeping this
I'm
up
doing
to
my
date.
best. I'm doing my best. If anything's missing, please fire away to me and it will be updated. But there you go on the website there. A few other things. New Japan Cup. I did get to see the Tanahashi Naito match today. They had a very nice match. Naito ended up winning. This was after Tanahashi hit the aces high, then missed the high fly flow, and Naito just caught him with a rolling jackknife cover. They went 18:43. I wouldn't say they're upper echelon of matches, but fast paced. It was like really nice match that they had. And so Naito advances, and Jeff Cobb beat Yoshihashi with the Tour of the Islands. So it will be Jeff Cobb against Tetsuya Naito in the next round, and the winner of that will face the winner of Shima and Kazuchika Okada. So presumably Okada against either Cobb or Naito. I could see it being Okada and Cobb in the Final Four.
I mean, Cobb seems like a front runner for a lot of people out of the mix, and I think that.
And if he beats Okada, like that sets up a natural match for the championship next month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ratings notes. Not a whole lot to say about SmackDown and Rampage. SmackDown was number one on Friday night on with 2,226,000 viewers. They were down like a minuscule 1.5% from the week prior and doing a 0.57 in the 18 to 49 demographic. Nothing too wild. Like women 18 to 49 were down 13%. Men in the demo were up 6%. It was kind of in line with what SmackDown's doing. I will say in Canada, Raw and SmackDown last week both did their biggest numbers of the year in Canada. Raw had its biggest number since August in Canada, and SmackDown, it was their largest number in months. So at least in Canada, it seems to be certainly on an upward trend going into WrestleMania. Rampage did 526,000 viewers, finishing 23rd on cable for the night with a 0.22 in the 18 to 49 demo. So down slightly from the week before, and kind of a by the numbers AEW edition of Rampage. So I don't think there's too much to dissect from Friday's numbers.
Okay.
That's
if
it.
If you have nothing to say, then I certainly have nothing to say about this shit. Yeah.
I know you have plenty to say about NXT 2.0 tonight because we're getting Miz TV with Dolph Ziggler, along with Santos Escobar and Cameron Grimes in a qualifying match for the ladder match at Stand and Deliver. Persha Parada and Indy Hartwell, one-on-one. Best friends going at it.
All right, they're already blowing that off. I thought they might save that for WrestleMania. Whatever. Like we can kind of be snarky about like some of the inexperience here, but again, this is what this show is meant for. It's a test for all of them. I actually think Hartwell and Parada have done decently well in all the tests that they've been given. So I look forward to seeing what they have to offer in a one-on-one setting.
And then Kushida against A-Kid.
Yeah,
It should be very good.
which will be very good, and it's kind of like NXT UK continues to be, I think, a really interesting topic in the environment that NXT 2.0 seems to have crafted. You know, like you're talking about NXT UK, which I think is so much based in the, I mean, still very much based in the indie, super indie type of mold. And now they're kind of in a position where they're having to cherry pick certain talents from them. And of course, we've seen, GYV, we've seen Gunther, we've seen, Kaylee Ray. I don't exactly know how A-Kid fits into that, how A-Kid fits into the NXT 2.0 setting. Is he going to be given a character?
He will become a man.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Like, could he join Jacket Time, John?
What do you see? We talk about all these different kind of like the veterans on NXT 2.0. Kushida is going to be 39 in May. I don't know when his deal is up, but do you see Kushida like this is not the NXT he came to,
No.
but he moved all the way over here. So like you have that similar to like Nakamura. Is this just your lot? Because if this guy was going to be called up, it would have happened by now. I think like you're looking, do I just want to be pretty much in the role they envisioned for a Kyle O'Reilly, and he opted to leave. Like for a Kushida, like, he obviously came here with certain goals, and I imagine that, being on NXT 2.0 in this kind of role was not that goal.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think he probably had aspirations of what Shinsuke Nakamura is doing, at least having a full-time, a role on the roster, or at the very least what Akira Tozawa is doing, having some sort of role on the main roster, being able to at least have depend on some sort of stable, significant income. And I don't know what Kushida is making. I would assume a bit better than your typical NXT Performance Center signee. But nonetheless, like, the stats and the stature of what he presents to a Vince McMahon, I'm not at all optimistic about. So while he's in NXT, he's either really going to have to catch fire, and so much so that, like his ascent is undeniable, or I just think they'll let that contract expire and he'll have to figure things out, or if he'll leave himself.
Yeah, it's just one of those, terrific talent, but, from size, age is working against him. It's just like this system, it just seems like this is the ceiling for him.
And I don't necessarily think he's in this match with A-Kid to beat A-Kid either.
No, this is about A-Kid. This is not about Kushida.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's coming up tonight on the USA Network. And just to let everybody know, we're trying out a new experiment today. In about a half hour's time at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Way and I are going to be doing our monthly Ask Away mailbag show. And we're going to be giving live access to our Double Ice Cap and Espresso members at postwrestlingcafe.com. So if you have not had enough of us today, you can come back at 2 Eastern and listen in as we go through all of the mailbag questions. And we'll open it up at the end for live questions from those that are in the Zoom room. So that's happening in a half hour's time. If you are not around for that, then the podcast version will be available later today for all members at postwrestlingcafe.com, regardless of what tier you're at. But looking forward to that later today.
Yeah, it's something a bit new. We're trying with an audience now, checking us out for a lot of our, I would say, or at least we're doing video for a lot of our Patreon shows right now. So pretty excited about that. We have one super chat here, and this was actually from Ruza with an $8 super chat, Australian dollars, who says, "Thank you, Jimmy, for giving us this insight about this incredible individual. Always appreciate your stories and expertise. I think EXP. Tanahashi with a great tribute." Yes.
Yeah, there were several from New Japan. I saw stuff from Tanahashi, Yuji Nagata, who, I mean, not just in New Japan, but also came over here for that lengthy stay with WCW. Kojima posted about him as well. So, I mean, Scott Hall, like, he first went to New Japan in '87, back when he was with AWA, and they had that connection. And then, of course, during the NWO years, they had that relationship with New Japan. And then after WCW went out of business, he went there throughout 2001 as well. So he had like an extensive time over in Japan with a lot of some of the stars that are still stars today. But I want to thank Jimmy Korderas very much for joining us. Again, we'll be back at 2 Eastern with the live Ask Away. And then tomorrow in this slot on the Post Daily News Show, it will be Wai Ting and Andrew Thompson who will be back. So they will be handling the news. And then we're live Wednesday night with Rewinded Dynamite here on the channel. So subscribe, thumbs up, you know the drill. Knock, knock, 10K, here we come. Help us get to that figure because life changes at 10K, I understand.
Oh, I mean, the air smells better. Flowers start blooming.
Balloons will just come from the sky
Yeah.
to celebrate this milestone.
We'll work on that. Yeah.
We're working on it. All right. Next, we're going after that damn plaque from YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Look
you
out.
betcha.
Look out. All right. That's going to wrap it up. And that concludes your Post Daily News Show.